No, I want to start where everyone's mind already is. Elon Musk and his Twitter disaster. I want your expert or personal opinion from a leadership, psychology perspective. What happened there? Is he stupid? And how the hell did he build Tesla, SpaceX, Neuralink? I mean, he's one of the most successful entrepreneurs alive. How does somebody who's so successful have such a catastrophic and humongous blind spot about how he's experienced by other people? What's your thought on that, Nono? No
My
pressure.
thought is there's no way you can say that. That's my thought.
I just read what I was told.
Stupid? Is that what he said you should say? No way. Elon isn't stupid. Yes, I know that he did all that stuff. I just feel like, nah, guys, I'm uncomfortable with this. Because the man, he's built rockets that land themselves. He's revolutionized electric vehicles. This is genuinely a brilliant mind. He even has Neuralink that's supposed to help you, talk to other people just with your mind. But what I have observed is that he's probably someone who has technical brilliance versus people intelligence. And that's completely different. So what I would say is a lot of people have what I'd call engineer brain, right? Are trying to now meet and function in a human system. So Elon probably looked at Twitter and saw inefficiencies. He saw code that could be leaner, teams that seem bloated, and he applied the same logic he used at SpaceX. So you cut the fat, you move fast, and you demand excellence. But when you fire 80% of your workforce over a weekend, when you send emails at 2 a.m. getting people to commit to being extremely hardcore, when you publicly mock employees on a platform they built, you're not optimizing a system. You're basically traumatizing the community. And I think that's where the disconnect comes through.
Sometimes we are afraid to do something. You fear shame. I don't want shame. We're trying to break that burden by sharing stories of courage, resilience, and we want to be able to celebrate your story.
Shameless.
Hold on, but I mean, is it really so? If you're put into the business to deliver results, the buck ends with you. So you kind of need to do what you need to do, especially if you don't have much time. So is it being not self-aware, or is it being very self-aware the fact that in order for him to hit these markers in a short space of time, he needs to do what he needs to do?
So there's this book called The 7 Habits of Highly Effective People by Stephen Covey. And he goes, you go fast with things and slow with people. And I think that that's probably what you have to do here. So yes, trying to optimize a process or trying to optimize the tools that you use, you can go fast. But when you're not dealing with people, you probably have to go slow. And you go slow to maybe go fast later on, because now when you fire the wrong person, I think there's a story that he fired some top engineer, and then they couldn't get into one major system that messed up the internal processes of the business. So it's just okay, well, maybe if you understood who's doing what and why before you just pull the trigger, you would now have to backtrack and go and try to find that person to come back to work to help you out in a bind. So that I do think that there's a balance between the two. For example, I don't disagree that he had to come in and try and make the space efficient. I think the way in which he did it was he forgot about the human dignity that every person is allotted to. I get it. Listen, I get peed off with people on my team all the time. I got peed off today and just what is why are you here? You're not helping me. So I get the frustration, but I think you still have to kind of think about, okay, what are we doing to help them to do better? What tools are in place to make it more efficient already? You know what I mean? I don't know. I don't think it's a straight answer. How would you define self-awareness?
So I'd go, there are two types of self-awareness, right?
Mhm.
There's an internal self-awareness on how I see myself. So my values, my motivations, my patterns. Then there's the sort of an external self-awareness, how others actually experience me. And I think the balance lies in being confident in yourself, but then also being able to communicate in a way that achieves the best results achieves the best result from an external point of view. and therefore being able to have alignment, have motivation, and essentially being able to see whether or not what you are expecting versus what is others are receiving is fully aligned. So you need to just be really self-aware. Yeah.
So, with that description, then
Mhm.
I would say the answer is yes and no.
Okay.
Because internally, Elon might be like, I am Yoda. I'm so enlightened. I go to therapy every week, paid thousands of dollars. I meditate every night. And that's that internal self awareness that you're talking about. Then the external self awareness, which is what we're, I feel, kind of playing at right now, is
Yeah.
well, what does your team think? Do you play favorites? What's your direct communication style when you're upset because you want to, be the best? And is it too brutal? Brutal? And none of that tells you when you think you're being passionate, everyone else is now seeing, oh, this guy can't control his emotions, or this guy's just too much focused on the bottom line. So that's why I go yes and no. So, yes, inside he might be like, this is what everyone wants. Externally, it's like 80% of people like, I don't have a job. So, no, I don't want this. That's my answer.
Okay. Well, I'll have to agree that it is there's no really right answer, but there are probably better ways to do it. However, it's very peculiar to me about what is the relationship between power and self-awareness. Because sometimes it seems the more powerful you get or the higher up you go up in sort of a rank, the less self-aware you become. And my question to you then is why? Why do you think that that might be the case?
More money, more problems.
More money, more problems. Wait, how's that? How's that? How does that eat away at your self awareness? I mean,
So, first, success creates confirmation bias on steroids. I know a lot of people who it's just like if you keep winning, you think you're now feeling like you're a deity. Like that's how great you
I mean,
feel.
but if you keep on winning, then
You're still
you
a
pretty much
human.
are.
No, you're still
Mhm.
human. So when you've been right about big things, and Elon has been spectacularly right, he's literally the richest man. He's what we call the true richest man, because if you add number 2 and 3 together, they still don't have as
Don't.
much money as Elon Musk has, which is another conversation of how much money is in the world. Is it real? Anyway, I
Anyways,
digress.
digressing.
So he's obviously been right about, his electric vehicles and his reusable rockets and about things that experts said were impossible. So I can imagine he's starting to think, wow, my instincts are absolutely right. And why wouldn't you? You've made yourself the most richest, you're probably going to be the first trillionaire, right? Second, the feedback loops probably break down when you get to that height of success. So when you're Elon Musk, who's in your life? Like maybe your brothers, maybe your, well, I don't know if it has brothers, but like maybe your
He does.
siblings, your family, confidants who've known you for a very long time. And when they look you in the eye, there's probably groupthink happening in that space because you've allowed them to also win. So why would you be wrong? And then who exactly is in there that's saying, hey, that's a terrible decision. Or, here's why you should consider this. And I also think that if you're interacting with your employees are probably terrified because they need the job, the high paying job, because they're paying mortgages overextended. I think like the average American is in debt. Like it's like $50,000 per person or something in debt. So you obviously want to stay in your job. And then if you think about the board, right? Because usually you'll go, okay, all companies have like board of directors who are going to be managing that, but like you are the actual board, like
What do you
you
mean?
are the guy.
I mean, he's still accountable to a board.
Is he though? Because recently the board wanted to give him like a crazy payout. And I think it even went to court or it went somewhere and he still got the payout because they're like, no, we can't lose Elon Musk. Like he's amazing. When he had his little stint in Doge and the American government, and then he wasn't doing anything. And he now has a city in Texas and he's building a mega mansion in Westlake and whatnot. So it's just like, I feel he's the board. Like, yeah, he has oversight, but does he really have oversight? I don't know. So, because they benefit from your success. Do you know what I mean? So they want to keep you happy because if you continue to give them more money as the CEO of the company, then why would they really like stop you? So what ends up happening is that you're in that echo chamber of excellence surrounded by people who either agree with you, fear you, or have learned that disagreements is career suicide. right? So
Mm.
that's my take on that.
So I'd like to maybe jump into the feedback problem. So why
Mhm.
no one tells you the truth? Because let's talk about one of the biggest obstacles of external self-awareness. No one is willing to tell you the truth. And the higher up you go in leadership, the less honest feedback you get. So, and I think you mentioned it. I mean, your team members, people around you, the board, you know, they have mortgages, they have kids, they have career ambitions, they want to make money, and they're not going to risk everything by telling their boss that they're a horrible person. Honesty is a risk too large for a lot of people
Yeah.
to convert that into real tangible results. So how do you get real feedback when everyone has an incentive to lie towards you? I'm very curious to understand when you talk about open door is my door is always open. Does that work? And is that real? How do you circumvent or challenge that sort of innate nature for people to want to be with you because the risk is too large to be against
Yeah, so it's just saying your door's always open and then your door's actually closed when I walk past it is not how you're going to get
you?
people to feel like they're going to give you feedback. It is the responsibility of the leader, and it also is very dependent on the culture of the organization. So, what I find is that if you are working in very high risk, highly regulated industries, so that's finance, that's construction, that's energy, that's mining, you'll find that there's very strong hierarchical, large power distances in that space. And also, people don't give feedback. Like, you have to follow, you just get told kind of like that's just kind of how it is. Whereas if you're in these like low power distance, more fairy type of industries like technology and I don't know what else besides technology, but like that sort of space, people want you to give feedback. So first, I think you need to understand what environment you're playing in because you don't want to disrupt where you're at. Then, depending on the
Hold
environment that
on.
you're
No,
in,
no, hold on. How are you going to be a transformation leader and not be disruptive? I kind of feel that is there's an irony to that statement.
so I think that you should disrupt processes, you can disrupt business operations. I don't think you should disrupt people. And what I mean by that is so when I worked in a place that had a high power distance culture, I did not go to the manager and criticize him in front of his team because I knew that I would just be creating an enemy. And my job as a transformation leader is to transform the organization. So I'm going to actually need people to support and believe in me. So I would set up an appointment with that manager and have a private conversation and give them that feedback one on one, right? Now, if I'm the leader, because you were talking about the leader, we're not talking about me as the employee trying to like give feedback. If I'm a leader, I need to invite people to give me feedback. And I can give them rules about how I want the feedback to be given to me. Set up a meeting in my office after this meeting and we can talk. Or at the end of the session, you can specifically ask, hey, are there any issues? If you hear no one's asking any issues, then you can set up individual meetings because no one's setting up a meeting with you because they're scared or whatever. And you can force them to have that conversation with you. And then when you do get feedback, well, how do you react to it? Whether it's in private or by email or anonymous, is there backlash? Is there punishment? Because I think that people don't actually care what you say, they care what you do. So how you're operating, what your actions are is actually how the team is going to be learning this is safe or this is unsafe.
Okay, fair enough. Fair enough. So with that one, right? I want to bring a listener story into this conversation because I think what you said kind of talks to what might be part of this answer to this listener. And the listener story is the VP who everyone thinks is a bully. And it's from Patricia K, who's a VP of sales in New York City. So here we go. Drum roll, please. I am a woman, VP, in a predominantly male industry. I've had to fight for every single promotion. I'm direct, I'm demanding, and I hold high standards. I don't sugarcoat nothing. I've been told I'm intimidating I've been told I'm
Why
intimidating.
did you roll your eyes? I've been told I was intimidating before. Remember,
I
I
mean,
even told you, I'm like, this person's intimidating.
I'm just like, she says, I've been told I'm intimidating my whole career, my entire career. And the whole career, I mean, like
From the
everything,
beginning,
shitty, the beginning,
from day
that's
one.
why I rolled that. I've been told I've been intimidating my entire career, which I know is often code for confident women and really an undermining statement. Last quarter, 3 people on my team quit within 2 weeks, all citing toxic work environment in their exit interviews. HR pulled me into a meeting. They showed me the exit interview summaries. Patricia
Yeah.
yells in meetings. Patricia sent me 15 Slack messages at 10 p.m. and then was upset I didn't respond until the morning. Patricia publicly called me out for missing a target, which was humiliating. I felt blindsided. I'm not yelling. I'm passionate. I'm not demanding. I'm holding standards. I message at night because that's when I work, not because I expect immediate responses. But here's what I'm struggling with. How much of this is a legitimate feedback about my impact and how much of it is a bias against women in power? Because I've watched male leaders do exactly the same as what I'm doing and be direct, work late, demand excellence, and they get called strong leaders. My coach asked me, even if some of it is bias, what if some of it is also true? What if your team is experiencing you as aggressive and you're using the bias as a shield to avoid looking at yourself and your actual behavior? I don't know how to untangle this. I don't want to become softer to make people comfortable, but I also don't want people to be the leader. I don't want to be the leader that people are afraid of. So here's what I need to know. How do I develop that external self-awareness when you're navigating systematic bias? How do you separate they can't handle a powerful woman from I'm actually creating harm? And how do I then change without losing my edge? What's your take, Nono?
Sheesh, well,
Damn!
that
That
was
one
a
is
lot
loaded.
to
I mean, that's
unpack.
like God, that's got everything. It's got
That
like
got, yeah, that's a lot.
it's complex.
Well,
I'll get my let me get my tea. Go
I
for it.
thought you're actually going to stand up and go get food. Yeah, so women in leadership do get called aggressive for behavior that gets their male counterparts being seen as, decisive and whatnot. And it's documented, that's real. So there's probably is some bias, but I also think that there might be some legitimate feedback. So she needs to find sources of truth there, like people who see her very clearly and understand the bias she faces, that can truly relate to her. So, don't go to someone who will not relate to what you're going through. It's a waste of time. Mentors, sponsors, maybe peers who share her experience with the other female leaders and just having those conversations with them. And then I also think that she should separate the what from the why. So if people experience her as intense, that's the what. But why do they experience her that way? Is that bias or is that behavior? It matters less than the fact that what reality she's trying to navigate. But I think that she should also stick with keeping to her edge. She should be herself. The goal isn't to become palatable to people who would never see you again, right? So I get the idea of like, okay, I don't want to get softer. I don't want to change who I am. The goal is to be effective. And sometimes that means you need to adjust, right? So sometimes that means deciding which rooms are worth adjusting for. So she doesn't owe anyone any comfort. One thing that I do, because I am someone who sends every Sunday evening, I prep for my week. So obviously my team gets more
Everything.
than 15 Slack messages. They get
Everything.
essays and links and sometimes even a video screen record of me showing them what I want to talk, do so that they really understand. But what I tell them is I will send messages whenever I have time to send messages. There is no expectation from me that you need to respond to a message. The only time, and this is like if it's an emergency that I'm going to need you to respond to a message, I will send you a text message to say, hey, but if it's on Slack, if it's email, you just stick to your working hours. When you get into the office on Monday in the morning, you're going to see Nona sent me 28 Slack messages and 5 videos and whatever the case may be. And then you just work through them. So I think that communicating also, like, because she mentions in her story that she sends messages
But she
and
doesn't expect.
that she doesn't expect people to answer. But also in that same story, she said that someone said she sent 15 stack messages, and when they don't answer, she gets
She
mad.
gets upset. But then, okay, so then I got a question. And this question is more for the leader, right? When is too much? Like, when is it like, okay, you're asking and you're demanding too much? Is that, or is that expected if people, is that okay if people have the expectation that that is what this whole gig is about? I mean, surely there's no, you have to work. You have to work, right? You can't have the luxury of like choosing when to accept.
Well, okay. If you decided at 5 years old that you wanted to be a doctor one day, and then you went through medical school, you did all the things, and now you're a doctor, and then there's an emergency at 2 a.m.
Who are you going to be upset with?
Like, so I feel like it depends on what industry you're in. So there's some industry. So for example, if you're in a tax accountant, I'm going to assume that when it's not tax season, you're playing golf. Like, what are you doing? Are you even
What?
in the office? Like, I don't know. I'm genuinely actually asking. So if give me the answer, right? But then tax season, you're working super, super late. Or auditors, right? So auditors, like people who do project-based work. Sometimes it's like, oh, it's fine if the manager didn't scope it well, then maybe have some crazy hours for that specific project the next one. So I don't feel like it's always the same, unless maybe you're in government. Maybe government's the only place where you can just like have
Wow.
tea 5 times a day. Like, listen, I have no shame. I'm never going to take it back. I said it with my chest. So yeah, so I think that one, the company should probably let you know. So if you're coming to work for me in my organization, I always get crazy sometimes. And as much as every year we try our best to and I think we're doing a really good job. We try to like really respect the quote unquote work-life balance. But you have to understand that there's sometimes where work-life balance is not going to work because a product needs to be launched by the 1st of February. So that means, yes, I do expect to see you working over the weekends at night and whatever, burn that midnight oil so that we can deliver whatever we need to deliver. But then on the times that they're not delivering and someone goes, hey, I just need to take a day off because I'm tired, no one gives you stress so you can take a day off. So I think it just depends on the situation.
But when you look at it sometimes, I'll give you the example of Amazon employee turnover. Average Amazon employee turnover is quite high. I mean, they typically stay in the business between 1 to 2.5 years. And that's just because it's a difficult and high demanding workspace, right? And is that a bad thing? Especially if you know that that is what it is. And just like the doctor, that is, you're going into that space. So surely being upset about that is not reasonable. Or companies like Amazon should not exist because clearly it's either self aware, but the self awareness is to the destruction of a larger community. Because that's what we're talking about.
Do you feel like Amazon is a destruction to a larger community? And when you say larger community, do you mean that the fact that we have Amazon and we're not going to our local stores and our mom and
No,
pop shops, or do you mean like the office?
I think there are quite a few people who might be working for Amazon who feel like their work conditions are not nice or not favorable or have disgruntled about certain things, right? But if Amazon has always got a PO for that, and that's how they essentially maximize efficiency, maximize value, and they can still function quite effectively despite their high turnover, for them it's a working business model, but they're not necessarily going to look after their employees, and that's why the employees not going to stay there for 20, 30 years plus. So they're very clear that we're here to do A, B, and C, and that's fine. They're aware, they're self-aware, and they're very, but are they taking, I mean, so that's why I go, people are in the job, not happy, but that's what the MO of the company is. And is that a bad thing? Because they told, straight up before even going there, that this is what it looks like.
I don't know if it's a bad thing. I just feel like if I don't know work in a company that doesn't value me, I just won't apply there. But maybe
But then
that's
it,
not the right answer
but
because
if you don't have options and you do apply there, does it make sense for you to be upset about it?
I would say no, but I feel like I have more tolerance for discomfort than maybe other people.
Okay. All right. So
Yeah.
then I have a question about the identity trap, right? Protecting your self-image. And on this particular segment is every leader has a story they tell themselves about who they are. I'm empathetic. I'm an empathetic leader. I'm a visionary. I don't know what Elon is telling himself, but
What are
I'm
you
the one
telling
who.
yourself, DK?
What I tell myself is that I strive to get results and I will work with the team to try to get the most out of the individual. And that would mean that at times I am going to not be so nice. And it's also going to mean at times I will, cool off a bit. So I think I'm results driven, and the results need to be based off of a commitment that an individual has made, and we will hold each other to account and drive it really hard, and we get very uncomfortable. And I think that will then have a mixture of me being a horrible person, but also, I hope, empathetic at some moments and at some times. So that's how I see it myself. And the curious question, which I'm actually curious to anybody listening to the podcast who's actually experienced me, what are your thoughts? And please be free. Just let it in. Just
Be
let it.
free.
Yeah, be free, because I'll find you and I'll.
No
So,
consequences. I want the feedback.
but I guess, and then, so I guess then, so that's what I tell myself, right? How I view
Mhm.
myself. But
And you'll probably bend reality to protect that story.
I would probably bend reality to tell. And I've had moments where I'm like, yeah, no, you're mad. Like that's not me. But then there are moments where I just can't deny it, and I'll be like, okay, yeah.
Yeah.
And but I guess then, at what cost of protecting one's identity instead of seeing the reality? At what point do you have to have a bit of delusion over reality for you to actually be a leader? Because if you constantly like absorbing what everybody around you is telling you, then you're just going to be with the wind, right? Like floating and being blown across. So as a leader, as somebody who runs their own company, that is something that I think, you have to have a sort of conviction in the direction, in the process you're going. So yes, firstly,
I think you need to understand why we do this. Why does a person have to tell themselves, I am the nice one, I'm the missable one? And I think it's just around this psychology around it. Basically, it's for survival because your sense of self is who you are. So, what you stand for, how you differentiate yourself from others, that's not optional, right? Like, we're all unique and blah, 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 right? And get a golden star. It's the foundation that you built on your life, and threatening that foundation can feel like an existential threat mentally, right? Even when it's not. So when feedback contradicts your identity, so if I go, I am very kind, and then someone says you do very unkind things, your brain doesn't say, oh, interesting, new information. It says danger, defend, deflect, deny, maybe even annihilate. No, I'm kidding. So I think that
wouldn't be
that's
far fetched.
I think that that's actually what happens. So basically, you'll find that yes, I need to be self. This is my identity as a leader, and you tell yourself the story, and you're going to protect yourself in the story. Then, as a leader yourself, you probably have types of leadership archetypes. So, oh, I'm the nice boss, and they actually care about people, except caring for people means they don't have difficult conversations. I know nice bosses that are so frustrating because they'll go, you're doing a great job. And the person doesn't get promoted. Someone else gets promoted because they were being a nice boss instead of having the straight shooter boss who's going to tell it like it is, but except they use their honesty as permission to just be really mean. You have different other types like visionary, servant leader, and they all come with problems, right? So people, I feel like visionary leaders, the problem there is that execution, dololo means. Servant leader, in my point, is like, okay, it's hard to make hard decisions or hold people accountable. So everyone of these identities has a shadow regardless. So you actually want to be a mix of them and pull out a specific archetype depending on the situation, right? So I feel like as a leader, that's what you want to do. You don't want to go, I am just this one thing. I think you want to be like water. Sometimes you can be ice and you can crack a rock open. Sometimes you can be like a river, you can smooth a rock over time. Sometimes you can just go through between the cracks with no friction. So I feel like that's probably what you want to do.
But I mean, so I can understand you being like that from an external awareness point of view, but from an internal awareness point of view, where we talk about things like what motivates you and what so more foundational elements, surely your principles should be steadfast and therefore your internal awareness should be quite firm. Whereas your external one can carry those different archetypes, but founded off of the internal views. What are your thoughts there? Or
So are you
you're allowing yourself to be
stand for
fluid?
something, don't fall for
Yes,
everything,
exactly.
basically.
Yes.
That's fair. I think there's nothing wrong with that. And I think you're like me as a leader. I think that good leaders are constantly thinking about their actions. So I had I had 3 different conversations this morning with 3 different people. Some of the conversations were more frustrating than others. And how did I handle that? Was that the right way to handle that? If I'm handling it terribly, does it mean that is it a me thing or is it a person? Is it that person thing? You're constantly like, I think you're constantly questioning your decisions. And then sometimes some people come and because you want to be someone who listens to feedback and listens to all that stuff. So you want to hear where people are coming from, right? And sometimes you do have to go, I've heard you. Thank you for the feedback. Now,
Bye. Get working. Like I said, doesn't change the price of bread. So then now when you get into those moments where you're really sitting at maybe a harder space, or I'll go with intention versus impact, right? One of the biggest self-awareness traps I see in some of the leaders is confusing intention with impact. I don't mean be hurtful. My intention was to push people to grow. I, for one, sometimes get that really mixed up because my intention might be X, but the impact that I have because of the way that I delivered, the moment I delivered, how I delivered, or if it's somebody who doesn't understand me and my humor or their lack of, but I think I'm funny. It sometimes it then has significantly different impacts compared to the intentionality. But intentions don't matter if the impact is destructive. How do you help leaders and how do you believe leaders can better understand this concept and then they be a better person for themselves and for the teams that they work?
okay, that's a good question. Start with this. My intention is my story, right? And then my impact is the experience. So only one of those is real to people around you. Okay. Because stories like Father Christmas came and gave you gifts.
Be real.
Experiences mom and dad came downstairs and put this under the Christmas tree. That's real. All right. And when you step on someone's foot, it doesn't matter that you didn't mean to, the foot's still going to hurt. You can stand there explaining your intentions all day, but the foot's still going to hurt. And I think leadership is the same. Your team doesn't experience your intentions, they experience your behavior. Remember, I was talking about like it's not what you say, it's what you do. And your behavior can hurt them, and your good intentions can leave real wounds.
But in my mind, that's where I think, I'm very curious because if your intention is good, then how are you going to know before the fact that what you're doing has got this destructive impact? Because, I mean, it's easier to say in hindsight, right? Because if I'm emotional, if I'm passionate, right? Like the other lady, Patricia. If I'm passionate, my intention is not, I'll get caught up in the moment, my emotions, and I'm really trying to convey something, and it's just passion. My intention is to convey a message and to show how much I care. But suddenly that thing I'm doing quite naturally because it's like no malicious intent to it, suddenly has this impact that is so destructive and so negative. But that's something that I'll only know after the fact. My question is still remains like, how do I bring that retrospective or that hindsight into the foresight for me to be able to act right? I can rap too.
Okay, someone's rhyming. Like, don't put your name out, though. So I get it, right? You're basically going, why can't you just accept that I didn't have a bad intention, right? Because
Yeah,
I
exactly.
don't have that foresight. And I think it's because intention feels like character. So when you say my impact was harmful, it feels like you're saying I'm a harmful person. And that's an identity threat. Remember when I mentioned earlier about the psychology when you tell yourself, I'm a great person, and then someone says, oh, you're actually horrible. You're like, defend, die, all that, all that. So that's what's going on. So if I didn't intend to hurt you, and then you say you hurt me, it's that same like, ee. So, what I would recommend you do, and this is something I also try to do, I'm not saying I'm good at it, but I do try to do this, is reframe that helps is saying impact isn't character, it's data. So, it's information about how you're landing and you can adjust. So, you can adjust your impact doesn't mean you're a bad person, it just means you're a leader who pays attention. So, if I think I'm someone who's very direct and I say it, I feel like it's like say what you mean but don't be mean, right? You can, that's kind of like my philosophy on being a direct person. You can be direct, but you don't have to be an a-hole. So if someone does take offense to what I've said because it's truthful, because my intention is to say what I mean and not be mean about it, I have to then think about the reframe. And maybe the information you're getting is this person is more sensitive. So you have to use softer words. You have to beat around the bush a little bit, like have a little bit of tea and coffee before you thing. There's this feedback thing where you go, you say something nice, then you give the feedback, and then you say something bad. It's called an SHIT sandwich. So maybe that's the sort of way that they prefer. I've just
What's that?
basically SHIT.
Okay,
So
gotcha.
I also think a shortcut is just ask people how they want to receive their feedback. So some people are like, actually, I'm a straight talker, and I just tell it to me straight, and we'll move on. And some people like, nah, I need kid gloves and lovey dovey. And I think that there's nothing wrong with that. So because the point of being a leader is to be effective. So me being a leader, I'm not changing myself if I know that this person wants stories before I tell them the issue versus this person wants thingy. What I do find is that your default will come out under pressure. So if your default is I'm a straight talker, ha, good luck, person who wants soft stories.
But so and that's brilliant as well, because now my question then is about on the other side of the coin, because we're talking about leaders, but sometimes people have to be led, and you have to have a level of empathy and or patience or even just understanding that the people that are leading you aren't robots or soldiers, they are people, right? And so what is your take on the other side of the coin for somebody who is applying or putting pressure onto their leader, then that leader defaults to what they're most comfortable and easier, and then suddenly you've created this chaos or this monster. How does that work?
Assume most leaders have tells, right? Now, one thing that
Tells.
I tells, as in if I'm dealing with DK, who's a mining engineer, this is me, like I'm just talking as myself, and I now need to work with him. I'm going to go, okay, what do I know about mining engineers? Okay, they're probably systematic, like engineers, scientific, they want evidence, they want validation, they want data, like numbers. So I'm not going to rock up to him without like a plan A, B, C, and with the reasons for that and that, right? But maybe I didn't know that. So first day I come to you, I do that, you get frustrated. And maybe you give me some feedback. I need A, B, C, right? Because I think most people will probably give you feedback of, I'm upset, especially if it's a first offense. I'm upset because of one, two, three. If the leader doesn't tell you why they're upset, then you better ask because you're not a psychic. And then hopefully, if they're a decent enough leader, they'll have the compassion to be like, this is what I'm looking for. And then it's your responsibility to make sure that the next time you rock up to someone like DK, you're not coming there without your I's dotted and your T's crossed. And there's a difference between I'm an early graduate learning things and I'm going to make many mistakes versus I'm 10 years of experience and since you kind of know this already, right? So I think that sometimes leaders will also, because you might go, oh, but he treats that person differently from that person. But it's like there's more context happening in there. Maybe the expectations of that person are higher because that person is in a higher position or has more experience than you or less experience, whatever the case may be. So I think that if you are going to a leader and they're getting upset, what can you control? You can't control how they're feeling, but maybe you can control how you prepare for those conversations. There's some leaders who have very low EQ and are emotionally stunted, and I have no advice for you there besides get out.
Wow, deep. That's crazy. That's nuts.
We're all friends here.
Yeah. Safe space, safe space. Then my question follow up around within the self-awareness space or journey is the role that vulnerability play within being able to be self-aware. And I think I'll ask you just straight, what role do you believe vulnerability plays in the ability to be self-aware?
I think it's a key. I think you can't be self aware if you're not vulnerable because the vulnerability to me is an indication of I'm not perfect, I'm human, I make mistakes, I don't know all the answers, whatever, I have imposter syndrome, my mama and daddy didn't love me, like whatever the traumas of your past.
Gosh. I don't know. You kind of lent into that one a bit too far. Just like
I can say that because my mom and dad love me very much. That's why I'm like this. No, I'm kidding. Yeah, maybe it really is because of that. But anyway, but I think about like being able to understand that you aren't an island and your environment and your past kind of like may may result in whatever. Like, why do I get frustrated? Because I'm someone obviously who likes control and I like to win. And that's not uncommon for people like me who are in the roles that I am. So you find that when we're not winning and we're not in control, it gets scary and ooh, now I'm getting like upset at things. And now I'm feeling like I have less bandwidth for listening to the 100th excuse that you have. And now, so I feel like vulnerability is really important in self. Like that's a long and short. What about you?
I think vulnerability is a very powerful tool in not only having people understand you as a person, but also understand the source of your intention. And I'll use this as an example. If when I sort of explain how my earlier and more formative years within the start of my career, how the type of environment that I sort of learned how to work, why I had to be quite combative and quite confrontational, and why those muscles became the more dominant and the default muscles. You start to understand why I think the way I do, why I act the way I do, and therefore appreciate the intentionality behind what I am doing. And I'll use the example of being the graduates or students. I believe that a lot of the time students need to be able to, graduates or interns need to be able to, they need to be able to communicate, but they also need to be able to go through tough times. Everything shouldn't just be easy, because the second that you don't exercise that muscle of resilience, then when a tough moment hits you, then you will crumble and you will struggle. But to be able to build and draw upon the resilience muscle that you build over time, I think that is something very important. So not necessarily giving everybody a handout or spoon feeding, or being able to call somebody out, even though they might be relatively young or early within their careers, that you have missed the mark completely and this is completely unacceptable. That is something that is important. And I think that's why I am quite harsh or quite strong towards some of the students, because I believe that those are things that they need to be able to be resilient and grow in terms of that muscle. So I did it to one of the students when I was reviewing some of the presentation. And I was like, there's no ways you can come to me and expect an hour of my time and then give me absolutely nothing but an Excel sheet. He never came back. But the other students who I was like, this is absolutely not acceptable for you to be able to do 1, 2, and 3 things. You're wasting my time. They came back and they leveled up. And that shows me a lot of difference between people. But my point around that is, if people don't understand my passion for graduate engineers and the reason why I then spend so much time, you will understand and see how I behave, and you'll think that the intentionality is significantly different. And I think that has a significant role to how you perceive my impact or what that impact really does. So I think vulnerability, for me, the biggest part of it is to be able to have alignment, to be able to ensure a level of empathy, to be able to then drive the understanding of intentionality so that the impact is aligned with the intention more times than not.
That's me clapping. So you mentioned something in your story about the graduate who some came and some didn't come. And
Yeah,
I also think that that's probably a journey in trust. So trusting that the person actually has your back. So
yeah,
I tell my team very clearly, like, if I don't give you feedback, the time if stop giving you feedback, if I stop talking, that's a big problem. That's like red flags. You should be very stressed. But if I'm constantly spending time after time walking through things out of my busy day, because I also have things to do, making sure that you have everything that you need to do, this is how I'm signaling to you that I value you as a team member. I value your contribution and I want you to be the best that you can be so that we as a business can be successful. But sometimes some people don't trust that. And it could be because they've been hurt, like burned from in the past, because they've had bad leaders that maybe said that, but they really didn't mean it. Or maybe it's the first time they have a leader who is like that and they don't know how to navigate that. But I can say, whether it's good or bad, the people who do more, who produce more, who are seen to be doing and producing more, they tend to benefit. And I'm not trying to say, okay, now everyone needs to be the same sort of person, loud and gracious, but I do think that you need to demonstrate that you are growing, you're capable, you're able to take on more, you're able to solve problems, you're a self-starter, you have resilience. And resilience is how many times are you able to get back up without me having to come with a first aid kit to, you know, let's sit here for 2 hours, like I'm your therapist. Okay. So can you get that? Or get your own therapist so that you don't do that work. But it's like, how quickly can you get back up? And the people who are successful, there's this quote I really, really love. And he said, I don't know his name, but he said that consistency does not guarantee that you're going to win. But if you're not consistent, it guarantees that you will not win. And
Yeah.
I think that's kind of how I look at it. It's just like, it doesn't mean that if you keep on getting back up, you're going to be the CEO at 20 years after your career. You could still be the same level. But if you weren't trying to get back up, you probably would be on the streets or different job or whatever the case may be.
That's very interesting. And I think that's a very difficult thing because how I think sometimes people believe that they are being consistent and that self awareness around being consistent and being honest with yourself and reflecting and external awareness, internal awareness. That's deep. Now, I think we've exposed quite a lot of blind spots. So for myself, having this discussion as I'm like, maybe I could do a little bit better there, or maybe I could have done a little better there. And I'm thinking, or I'm hoping that people who are listening are like, okay, this is interesting, but what do I actually do? Like, what are the things that I need to go back tomorrow and start doing? And I'm curious to understand from you, Nono, if you were to give me only two most important actions that someone can do this week to start developing real self awareness, what would those two things be?
Do you want better? I'll just give you one. So this week, I want you to ask someone you trust, what's one thing I do that you've wanted to tell me but haven't? And then be quiet and let them answer, right? So you're going to go, hey, no, what's one thing that you wanted me to do and you haven't told me? I want you to
Well,
give
I
me more
haven't.
compliments. So you got to be quiet and listen to them. Just listen, quiet. Don't defend, don't explain, just receive it and say thank you and sit with it. That's it. So just one question, one conversation. That's the start.
Interesting. I love that. Listen. And then if somebody is feeling stuck, and do you think what one thing would you suggest to them that to help them be unstuck? And that's really from from the self-awareness point of view, or from an external self-awareness, right? I feel stuck that every time I speak, I'm misunderstood. My impact is negative. Is it the same advice, or is there something different that you would tell that person who feels like
So in neuroscience, there is this term called neuroplasticity. Man, I read. Feels so good. Anyway, guys, you need to just read. I promise you, you just start sounding smart. Anyway,
"Oh,
the concept is that your brain, you can like teach your brain new things, right? Like, so, and the more difficult things that you do, better that parts of your brain grow. So you'll find that an athlete's brain is usually bigger in this specific, I don't know what it's called, that Lumna Gogara or something, I can't pronounce it, is bigger than other people who don't do difficult things. So if you are someone who has like negative beliefs, you need to start reframing those beliefs. So instead of saying, you said, what is it, like you can't speak in front of people, whatever the example was, you can you can actually say that you can speak in front of people and you can start by speaking in front of one person. So if you spoke in front of your mother, that then guess what? Moms be people too, right? I would also start doing like little challenges, right? To build that stamina. And what I mean is you're in a meeting, ask one question. Or if there's something about just like there's a report that's being read in the morning and it's just a report that gets read in the morning. No one really comments on that. Maybe volunteer and be like, hey, I really want to work out, you tell your boss, I really want to work on my public speaking. Is it okay if I read the reports in the morning? Maybe the first time you had 3,001, come again, come at 100. If the president of South Africa can be on national TV and not be able to read a long number, you'll be fine. Okay. So that would be my advice on that. And then one thing I also think is like this is really about the leaders, right? So there's one belief keeping leaders stuck, I think. And it's a lie that they keep telling themselves. And that is, I already know myself. That belief closes the door to everything. So we talked about this today. The moment you think that you've arrived at self-awareness, you've stopped developing it. So self-awareness isn't a destination, it's a practice, it's a journey. And the leaders who have the most impact are the ones who stay curious about themselves forever.
Well, and I think this has been absolutely amazing in terms of the discussion, and those suggestions and or advice of real practical actionable steps that people could take is very insightful. And I'd like to thank you for not letting us hide from these sort of hard truths. So thank you so much for holding up the mirror even when we don't want to look. And I didn't want to look, but no, for anybody who might be interested in finding you, accessing some of the frameworks that you might talk about in T4L, or if there's even a T4L course that sort of aligns with what we talked about today, what might that be in terms of the course? Where might they be able to find you, and how might they be able to work with you if you're accepting applicants?
So you can go to www.t4leader.com/ecosystem. So we have an ecosystem you can plug into right now. We have power journeys. So that's where I recommend that you kind of get cracked in, especially if you want to grow into the digital transformation or large scale transformation space. People who are doing that and have done that are in our communities. We also have like WhatsApp. We have webinars every month, book club, Shameless Circle, all the stuff. And if you want to find me, I'm on LinkedIn, Nono Bokete. Socials are also the same, Nono Bokete, and you can catch me there.
And family, if this conversation made you squirm, made you very defensive, or made you think, but I'm not like that, that's the tell. The defensiveness is the self-awareness gap. And here's what I need you to do. First, run the self-awareness test we talked about. Ask yourself, if I asked my team anonymously how I show up, what would they say? If you don't have a clear, specific answer, you're in the 85%. Need I repeat? You're in the 85%. Second, get real feedback. Not, hey, how am I doing? Feedback, like real feedback. Anonymous 360 reviews are great ways to do this. Always read the exit interviews. Ask someone who's left to tell you the truth now that they feel safe and they are safe. Third, watch your defensiveness. The next time someone gives you a critical feedback, pay attention to your first reaction. In fact, if anything, hold your first reaction way back. Do not try to justify or explain or defend it away. That's a sign. Self-awareness leaders listen first and never defend. I struggle with that one, but that's definitely a blind spot of which is very easy.
You can listen first. You can
but
listen.
Defend never?
I think you can
but
listen.
Defend never?
I don't know about defend never, but I think what it is when you say listen first and not defend is meaning you're just going to listen. You're going to sit with it, which was what we advised everyone to do. And then later you can be like, hey, let's have that conversation. Bye.
Damn. Fourth, work with somebody like Nono. Or get onto one of her courses at T4L. It's not a joke. It's for real. Because I think that some of your blind spots actually would be very difficult to work through alone. And by having a community rather help you work through it, both the internal self-awareness, but also the external self-awareness, you could do well with an external mirror to show you what you can't see. And fifth, share this episode with any other leader. And you know what? A leader is not necessarily somebody with a great position. It's somebody who's looking to impact change. And especially the one who think they're self-aware, but we know. Send it gently. I mean, even if it's like a WhatsApp, or send it boldly, posting onto their feed. Either way, just send it to them. It's okay. They'll get the message. We'll get the message. We'll all support. And finally, subscribe to this channel, hit the bell. And this episode drops on Tuesday. So make it worth your time. Watch the episode, share the episode, and enjoy the journey together. Growth happens in the discomfort. And this is where we hope to have uncomfortable conversations that help you grow. I'm Dzikamai Gangaidzo. I'm the host of the Shameless Podcast, but I'm also a mining engineer. And this Shameless Podcast was powered by Transformation Leader. Thanks so much for joining us today, Nono.
Thank you. Bye.
This podcast is brought to you by Transformation Leader. You can follow us at www.t4leader.com.